Hey, and welcome back to Sapper Woodworking. I apologize, it's been a little bit since I've had a chance to get a video up, but in central Indiana, where I'm located, the spring weather has broken, and I've been spending a little bit more time outdoors and not so much as much time as in the shop. But in today's video, I'm going to take you through some of the steps I've used to convert some old discarded skateboards into a bowl on the lathe. I've got a similar project to this in a previous video, which I'll put down a link in the description, where I made a bowl from the tailstocks of these skateboards. And in that particular bowl, the color pattern in the plywood layers was oriented vertically. In this particular bowl, the plywood pattern will be oriented horizontally. So this part of the project I didn't actually end up using. Here I was creating a sacrificial tendon that I glued onto the bowl, intending to make that the bottom of the bowl. But once I had kind of the blank project roughed out, I decided I wanted to switch the orientation of the colorful lines. The tail parts of the skateboard have kind of a curve to that, and I wanted those curves to kind of face up like a happy face rather than down, like a sad face. So I just pointed out with an arrow there that little piece of sacrificial wood that I ended up gluing onto the base that I later machined off. So I didn't really need to do that process, but I thought I'd go ahead and leave it in the video just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so I've got the pretty rough project mounted on the lathe, and what you're looking at now is the left side of this will eventually be the top of the bowl, and the right side will be the bottom of the bowl, which I will eventually turn a tendon, or I can flip this thing around and mount it in my metal chuck. But for now, I'm just starting the process to round it. I'm turning it to lathe at probably in the 100 RPM range, and can't go much faster than that due to vibration, but I just need to get this thing round. I think I started out here with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, and then I moved on to some carbide tip tools just because I find it easier just to hog out more material quicker in this hard maple using a carbide tip tool. Now I'm throwing a little arrow in here because you'll notice I kind of had my tailstock, I didn't have it tightened down, and just the vibration of the work I was doing, that tailstock is slowly vibrating left towards my project, and it took me a little bit of time to notice that. Thought that was kind of funny. Okay, I've got the project pretty round now. It doesn't actually look like it's round. It looks like there's a little bit of wobble on the side, but that's just, I think, an optical illusion created by the colors and the slight curve that you have in a tail of a skateboard. But here I'm just working on the what will eventually be the bottom of the bowl. I'm just making it nice and smooth, and I'll cut in a tendon that will use to attach my 4-jaw metal chuck, then flip the whole project around and start working on the inside of the bowl. All right, so you can see that the tendon's been made, and I'm doing a little fitting here of my metal chuck, which I'll use to flip the project around. And I've also done some additional shaping at the bottom of the bowl. And here's a good shot. You can see how the lines are just a little bit angled and curved. So that's what you get with the skateboard tailstocks. So now that I know that the 4-jaw metal chuck fits really well, I'm just going to flip this thing around, reverse mount it on the lathe, and start working on the inside. And this is where I really didn't, I mentioned earlier, I really didn't need to make that tendon. I could have just screwed the faceplate right into the top of this project. So that was just kind of an extra step that I had unnecessarily made when I decided to change the orientation of the bowl. Now we'll take my trusty, something like 15-year-old rigid impact driver, and we'll take off this faceplate and we'll start hogging away some of the material. I don't actually have a video of me removing that sacrificial piece that I had unnecessarily glued on, but you'll see here in just a minute I've mounted my little chuck into my tailstock, and I'm using just a series of Forstner bits to kind of start hogging out a lot of that center wood. That's just way more efficient than trying to use a lathe tool. So the last Forstner bit that I'll be using to hollow out the good chunk of the wood on the inside of that bowl, I believe, is 4 inches. And those things do a great job to get a really quick head start on hollowing out the inside of the bowl. You could certainly use a lathe tool, but the Forstner bits are just, like I said, way more efficient and saves quite a bit of time. And now I believe that's my 1/2 inch bowl gouge. I just returned to, I think it's sharpened right off the grinding tool, and I'm just going to take some time and take one pass at a time and hollow out the center until I get the shape I like, and sand both the inside and outside smooth, and then we'll get on to the finishing process. All right, we're almost finished with most of the primary machining. The bowl's been sanded smooth down to 220, I believe, on both the inside and outside. And now the last thing to do is to flip the bowl around using what's commonly referred to as a jam chuck. And that's just a scrap piece of wood that's got a slight round to it that's mounted to a faceplate. We'll put that on the lathe, and we'll just use a couple pieces of foam padding that will kind of protect the inside of the bowl from any scratches. We slide the padding in between the bowl and the jam chuck, slide the tailstock over, and that's plenty enough to support the bowl spinning while I remove that tendon that was just used to hold the bowl on the other direction inside the metal chuck. So it's a pretty straightforward and simple process to make the bottom of the bowl look professional, to make it look like you didn't have it mounted in any way to the lathe. Yeah, those jam chucks will do a great job of holding the project while you're cleaning up the bottom. And one of the keys to doing that is just to make sure you use a nice sharp tool and just take little tiny cuts at a time. If you do happen to get a catch, you might damage the bowl in some way. But I just take nice, smooth, slow cuts, and I'll slowly whittle away the tendon on the bottom, and I'll get down to the point where I can just snap off the final piece with my fingers, and then we can I'll just take my random orbital hand sander and kind of smooth out the bottom by hand, and then we'll be on to the last step, which is oiling and finishing the outside. So I've finished with the bottom finishing, and here snap. I just removed the last little piece of wood with my thumb, and I've sanded the bottom of the bowl smooth with my random orbital sander. And now I'm just on to the finishing process, and here I'm just using some boiled linseed oil, which will really pop the colors and the grain of the maple, and also give it a little bit of a warmth, that little amber warmth that you will typically find in an oil based finish. So I'll use the boiled linseed oil, let that cure for about 72 hours, hit it with 3 to 4 coats of spray on lacquer, let that cure, and then I'll buff out the lacquer on my buffing wheel and add some Carnauba wax, and you'll have a pretty long lasting shine and a thing of beauty that will last for a lot of years. Hey, I appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. If you like what you see in this video and some of my other videos, please consider subscribing. That really helps us out in our YouTube rankings and will help expose our videos to other people. And I've got a follow-up skateboard bowl video number 3 I'm currently working on, where I actually make a segmented bowl using the center parts of the skateboard. And I'm really liking how that one is turning out. So again, consider subscribing, and you'll catch us on our next video. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.